This is cs952, Introduction to Web Technologies and Design, and we're about ready to wrap up our contact form. And before I forget, I want to make sure I get my tab indexes set for my last four checkboxes. Now, if you don't recall, because it was a little while ago, when we added in our very first input, it was the first name. I said, let's be sure to set our tab index to 1, meaning that when this page loads, you can use the tab key on your keyboard and skip right between one field and the next. And we'd like to do that. It makes the page a little bit more user-friendly. So let's review what we've got in our page. If I click on First Name, I can see in my Properties Inspector, it tells me that this is a text input. It has the name of First Name. We have assigned it to the class of Form Control, and I can also see up here it shows me that this is an input. It's a member of the class for Form Control because it says .form-control, dot meaning or period that it's a class. We can see here's our name, first name. We have the required box checked, and we have a tab index of 1, and we give it a placeholder of first name. So it's this gray text in here so that people know what this is. Now let's click on the next one, last name. Again, we see it's a text input. The name is last name. We can see the name up there is last name. Checkbox, it's required. Member of the class Form Control. Our placeholder text says last name. And our tab index is 2, so this is the second field we would go to. Now let's scroll down. We've got email. Under our properties, we can see that this is an email input, right? It says email here. Name is email. Class is Form Control. It's required. And this has a tab index of 3. Now we're going to click on our Yes button. We can see that this is a radio input. The name is email list. And we already have a tab index of 4 set. Now, I'm going to check this box which says checked. And that means when this form loads, Yes will already be checked, and this means that unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to add you to my email list. And let's scroll on down a little bit, and now we have the 4 checkboxes that make up our checkbox group. So I'm going to click on the very first one which says Home, and down here we can see it's a checkbox. The name is favorite with 2 brackets after it, and recall that we're doing this by putting the brackets after it. This information that we're submitting is actually going to be part of an array, which is outside of the realm of this course, but I just thought I'd mention that. Our tab index, we don't have that set, so I'm going to type in 5. I'm going to enter 5 on the keyboard, and then I need to press the Enter key. And when I do that, you can see we now have our input. The code here looks a little bit longer. It says tab index equals 5. So this is going to be the 5th thing, if you could just keep hitting that tab key. Now let's click on Gallery. Everything's the same except my tab index is going to be 6. So I'm going to click in my tab index. I'm going to hit 6 on the keyboard and then press Enter. Okie dokie. Now we're going on to History. Again, checkbox. Tab index is going to be 7, so I'm going to put 7 in, and notice as soon as I hit Enter, the code will change on the page. And then we have our last one to check, and that's Media. And I want to set a tab index of 8. We've got all those set. Now we need to add, perhaps one of the most important parts of our form, we need to add a Submit button. Because without a Submit button, this form does nothing. It's the Submit button that makes the form action take place. In this case, our form action is going to post this information that we've collected from the visitor to the website. It's going to post that information to a page at the student website called contact.php, right? We know that because when we created our form, if we click on our form, we can see in our form properties where we have our form action. Right here it is. This is going to be the action. This is what's going to take place. It's going to post it to that form action. When we worked on our navigation, our form action was the Google search page, and the method that time was get. And the difference between post and get is a little bit outside the scope of this course. Just as we have done with everything else on this page, we're going to put our Submit button inside of a div that's a member of the Form Group class. We're using the Form Group class as a little container for all of the elements in our form. That's a part of Bootstrap 3. It's part of how Bootstrap 3 makes all of our forms look very nice and modern, well-spaced, pleasant to look at. If we didn't have Bootstrap, the form would look quite a bit different. So I'm going to hit Enter. So I'm opening up a new area between my last closing div tag, that was the div that holds my checkboxes, and then my closing form tag. That's the actual end of my form. So right here I want to insert another div. So I'm going to go to Insert and I'm going to choose Div. And we get our Insert Div dialog box. And we're going to insert right here at the insert point. Now, we haven't, I don't believe we've used this feature before, but you will have noticed every time that we've added a part to the contact page, the div has always been a member of the form group. Well, we could go ahead and as we insert the div, make it a member of the form group. Save us a little trouble, a little time. So I'm just going to scroll down here. Here's a list of all the classes available to us, courtesy Bootstrap 3. And we want our form group. Here we go, form group. Right there we go. Now let's say OK. And we've got that placeholder text. We don't need the placeholder text. It's highlighted right now. So if I hit backspace or delete, it will delete the placeholder text. So let's do that. Let's just hit backspace. OK. So we need to add the submit button to our form, and there's two different ways to do it. There's the easy way and the hard way. I'm going to show you the hard way first. So you do not necessarily have to do this. You can just follow along. So I've got my cursor. I'm in code view. I'm right here inside of my div, class equals form group. I can go to Insert, and I can click Submit button. And when I do that, I get a Submit button. That is exactly what we asked for, a Submit button, nothing more and nothing less. If we do it this way, we need to start to add in some extra parameters, which we could do, but let me just show you one other way to do this. I'm going to click Undo to undo what we've just done. And I'm going to hit Refresh just to make sure that my code is current. And I've got my div selected here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put us in 100% live view. Not in code view, but in live view. Alrighty. Everything's pretty much the same. We've got that div selected. We can see the div selected is in our status bar, right? We closed up code view. Now we're going to click on our Submit button again. Same thing we did just a second ago. I'm going to click on Submit. We get this little helper icon from Dreamweaver asking us, this Submit button, do you want to put it before the div, after the div, or do you want to nest it? Do you want to put it inside of the div? Well, yeah, we want to nest it. We want to put it inside of that div. So let's hit Nest. Okay. And here's the difference. I'm going to go back to Split View, and we can see that this time, when we added in our Submit button, we got a little extra work here. We got input, type equals submit, name equals submit, ID equals submit, and value equals submit. So Dreamweaver went ahead and added the values for these extra attributes for us, which is kind of nice. So we've got our submit button selected, and the first thing I want to do is I want to change the value from submit to something a little bit more personable, and I'm going to type in send us a note with an exclamation point. Everything else we're pretty much leaving the same. The name is submit. We just changed the value. I want to set my tab index, right? We had a tab index. The last number we had was 8. So I'm going to go to tab index and I'm going to hit 9. And then I'm going to hit Enter. Okay. And now if we look up here, we can see it says send us a note. We're making some progress. Now we can make this button look a little bit more interesting by giving it a class of button. And in Bootstrap 3, that's btn. So I'm right here. I'm going to, where we have class, I'm going to click right here and I'm going to choose btn for button. And we can see all the different kinds of button classes we have. So this is the one we're going to choose, the one that starts off the list, button. And now, as soon as we give it a class of button, Bootstrap does a little styling for us. See, it looks a little bit nicer there, a little bit more spacing there. Now we want to add a reset button. If you filled in all the information and now you want to change your mind and start all over again, we want to add in a reset button. So I'm going to click at the end of my line and I can hit Enter or Return to add myself a new line. And we can do what we did just a second ago, switch back to live view only. and then click on our reset button. I believe we just want to nest this. Let's click on nest. Now let's go back to split view so we can see both of these. Yeah, we have these guys, we have this in the wrong order. We have our reset button and then we have our submit button. Usually you have it the other way. So I'm just going to cut that and I'm going to click after my submit button and I'm going to hit enter and hit paste. It would work the other way, but typically you do have the submit button and the reset button. So I'm going to hit refresh. Okay, so let's add in those extra fields. For reset, the only thing that we're going to do is give it a tab index of 11. So just type in, tab index of 10, right? Because we had 8, 9, and 10. I'm going to assign this also to the class of button. So again, I'm going to go under my class and I'm going to choose btn for button. There we go. And we can still fancy this up just a little bit more. I'm going to click on my submit button and we can see it's a member of the button class, right? And it has a name of submit. We're going to give it one more class, and that's going to be the class of button primary. So we do this, we add a class to this by hovering over this little plus where it says add class. So I'm going to click where it says add class and I'm going to type period, because it's going to be a class, btn dash, and now Dreamweaver gives us a list of all of our different classes that fit this description. And I'm going to choose button primary. And when I do that, we get this nice blue looking button. Kind of makes it look a little bit sharper. So now I'm going to click on my reset button. Okay? And again, I want to add another class. So I click on my plus sign. And again, I'm going to type period btn. And this time, I'm going to give it a class of warning. Okay? Button warning. You can go to the Bootstrap page and get a lot more documentation on what these different buttons look like. So let's give it a class of warning. There we go. Alright, that's great. I am going to hit save all. Then we will come back and just test our form out and see exactly how it works.